Hey guys, Kevin here, back with another Lost Sword video. Today we're going to be going over Hikage, who is the second of the collab units who have come to the game. She is a midline nature archer, and I think I've done some testing with her since she came out, and I think the results are pretty interesting. To be honest, also quite disappointing, but just first things first, we're going to go over her kits. Usual passive we see on pretty much every DPS, 88% attack, 15% crit, but then she also increases the number of units she hits with her basic attack up to 3 or by 3. And then second passive, Fluttering Kunai. When Hikage defeats an enemy, the remaining cooldown of the active skill is reduced and Damage dealt increases as the number of targets hit by basic attack and active skill increases. And you can see here, upon getting a kill, she gets a 6-second cooldown reduction on her active skill. And then if there are 2 or more targets being hit by her, she inflicts 40% more additional damage. Active skill, Scatter, 420% of her attack, 7-second cooldown. And then her ultimate inflicts 1176% of attack to all enemies. She also gives herself a 30-second attack or 30% attack buff for 90 seconds. She will also transform, and her cooldown is 90 seconds, so very, very long cooldown on her ultimate. And as we've seen from her kit, she has no way of reducing it. So I think this and some of the other factors are what really limits her as a DPS, because you can see besides this buff, the other self buff she has locks behind a 90-second cooldown ultimate, and then also her needing to get a kill. So for content like Raid, I think she's very, very mediocre, if not subpar, because for most of the raids we have right now, it's just the boss you're hitting, so there's no opportunity for her to get a kill, reduce her active skill so she can make it more spammable. And then also, I think she'll only really shine in adventure race content, because I think, again, the fact that she needs to have a unit to kill to get this or to reduce her active skill cooldown. And if you also look at her card, which I was using earlier, I think her card is also a disappointing factor, because it's once again a case where like Nesh's card is probably going to be the best in slot, or you can use the Abyss 30 card. You can see here a card, usual stats you'll see, but then you also, upon killing, you get active skill damage for 3 seconds, and then it's a 3-second cooldown, so you get 1 use of the active skill damage. But once again, outside of adventure content, there's no real content where she's able to get a kill that easily. So honestly, I'm very, very disappointed in how the kit has turned out. Her build is pretty much the same, like a carbon copy of like a Lisa or a Nesha build. You want to use the Sagittarius weapon. I think it's the best because it gives you the crit chance she needs, and then you also want to use the cat ears and the cat suit, or I don't know if it's a maid suit or a cat suit, but wild combat suit, because they both give you attack, so that's an extra 15% attack. And then Thunderheart is going to be her best in slot in terms of the rune slot, and you want to stack as much attack and crit damage as possible. And then you can also try and get some HP here to give her some survivability. Card wise, I covered before, I think Nesh's card is the best by a mile. I think Lisa's card could be good. I think the Abyss 30 card, the one that gives you the team attack buff, this one, the Holy Grail Spirit, 36% attack, I think is also a good option. I think her card, honestly, if you don't have the pulls and you can only like awaken her or T5 her, and you don't, I think this card is a mega skip, to be honest. I don't think it's a good card if like in the content it's designed for. So if there's content where, like, if for example the upcoming guild content could be a place where it's easier to get a kill and there's like a lot of mobs, it could be an amazing card. But for me in the game right now, I don't think you necessarily need it. I would still say pick it up if you have the like ability to do so, because it is a collab, so you never know when these characters will come back, if they come back at all. In terms of specialties, you want to get attack, crit damage, the usuals. And then training wise, so a point they made to us was that there are no global buffs in the training for these collab characters. So all the buffs here are individual buffs for the collab characters. So I'm assuming the reason they're so much higher than the usual we see, because usually we only see like a 1% additional damage buff, is because where they won't be getting global buffs from or they don't give any global buffs to her account. So you can see a 16% attack. No other unit will have that except for Asuka and probably Yumi when she comes out. I think if you intend, their training is only worth doing if you intend to use them in the long term as like a DPS for your account. So for me personally, I don't think I'm going to be using Hikage very often. So I'm pretty much going to skip over her training. And then last thing to consider is in terms of my damage test, I tested Hikage with no specialties because I wanted to try and get a baseline for her damage compared to Asuka with specialties. So she did do more damage than Asuka, or she did slightly less damage than Asuka, but I think she would do more damage than Asuka when you add in the specialties. But then also, like, I think just in terms of her numbers, like it was nowhere near comparable to like a Lisa or a Nesha. So I think she's just like a severe downgrade to those two units in terms of actual like usability. The only reason I think she's even worth summoning is because she's a collab character and we don't know if she's ever going to come back to the game. So I like if you're not a big spender, if you don't really care about like T5ing all these kind of units, I think you could just grab a single copy just for collection purposes if you're that kind of player. But then you also run the risk that like if she, for example, could be buffed in future, you won't be able to reap the rewards because you won't have any way of T5ing her, at least not as the game is right now. But the only I think the only like for me example, the only reason I even awakened her or like pulled past T5 is because I like she's a collab character at the end of the day, so you never know what could happen. But my overall judgment is that she's not worth building right now. She's not worth summoning, or she's worth summoning for only because she's a collab character. But if you don't care about that, if you only care about actual performance, right now she's not worth summoning for. This, of course, could change if she receives some buffs, some changes in future, but not sure how likely that is, and you don't know when that would ever happen. So yeah, in my opinion, I think Nesha and Lisa are miles better in terms of DPS especially for the Archer class, and I think even other teams, Morgan is better, Lahengrin is better, Rand, Palamedes, all these units are all better. Like if I were to put her in a TS, for example, I would say she is like in line with like the Luas, the Anessas, those kind of units, the or even, maybe even slightly below those units in terms of actual damage. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's your decision to make on if you really care about her being a collab character. But I've got to say, I'm kind of disappointed because I'm disappointed, and then I'm also not disappointed. I'm disappointed that because I do like to like I max pretty much every new unit we get. I would have liked to like have some pieces of content where she's usable outside of like just adventure. But I'm also not disappointed because I think collab characters can often spark like some disagreement in the fan base because you could argue if you make them too good, it puts too much pressure on players to feel like if they don't summon for this character, they're gonna completely miss out. And then if they're too bad, kind of the opposite. Like you risk the game is risking itself at that point because like if they don't make much money from Havana, then it could like be bad news for the game in future. But yeah, overall, my judgment is that if you care about collab characters, you will definitely want to pull because you don't know when she will come back. If you don't care about the fact that they're collab characters or she's a collab character, and you only care about actual performance in the game, I think she's not worth it at all. And then if you're like a looks based player, of course, Summon, she's very, very hot, very, very good design. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. See you guys in the next one.